Hello everyone and welcome to yet another episode of PhD the Philosophical Drama. I'm your host Shweta and today we are going to discuss about a very crucial aspect of the PhD and academic life. That is, we are going to talk about how to maintain a healthy work-life balance. And to discuss that, today we have a very special guest with us. Her name is Chandler and she is a PhD student at the Medical College of Wisconsin in USA, and she also has a very active Instagram base where she posts a lot of videos about various aspects of her PhD life, and they are like really relatable stuff. So let's call Chandler aboard and discuss about the various aspects of work-life balance. Hi, Chandler.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Your voice is like very low. I think you would want to increase your volume.
Is this better?
No. Do you have earphones or headphones or something?
Yeah, I can. Can I rejoin once I find them?
It's very low. Like I can't hear you at all.
Now?
No.
Okay.
Maybe you would want to like exit and then come back. Yeah. Oh. Oh. It's my volume that's an issue. All right. Am I audible fine though? Hey.
Hi.
Hi. Okay. Looks like it's just me who can't hear you well, but I'll be fine with it. Like your
Can you turn up your volume or?
my volume is like maximum right now. Let me check. Um, uh, huh. My volume controls and I'll be back.
Okay.
Say something so I can, if I can check if I can hear you well.
Yes.
Oh yes, this is
Okay.
better. All right,
Great.
great. Okay, so welcome to our show and thank you so much for doing this. I'm really glad that we are like talking about work-life balance and this particular aspect of academic life.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So I would like to start with tell us a little about your PhD life and like different aspects of academic life that you're going through, and how does that affect your work-life balance?
Yeah, so I'm a third-year grad student. I will officially be a fourth year starting in August, so I'm approaching the end of my third year. I do biochemical cancer research. So I do a lot of work with cell culture and purified proteins. But with cell culture also comes a lot of work-life balance struggles because the cells have to be fed on certain
Right.
timelines. You have to split them into different petri dishes and all sorts of things on timelines that don't coincide with just a regular work week. And so it can make things challenging in that regard, just based on the kinds of techniques that I do.
Okay. So, like before starting, did you have like an experience with cell culture, or like did you already know that this is going to be a challenging thing? And like, did you already know that you are signing up for something which requires a lot of investment with respect to time?
Well, so my thing when I was running a lab was that I knew I didn't want to do any animal work, because that just bothers me personally. I really value research with animals. I just can't be the one to do it. I understand the value. I can't physically be the person at the lab bench that's actually doing that. So I needed something that was based in cell culture or purified protein, those kinds of things. And so that's the kind of lab that I joined. But the kinds of cells that you work with and also the culture of the lab depends on how you end up taking care of those cells. Some labs that really don't like to work on the weekends will then split their cells thinner on like a Friday and then on the Monday afterwards and then split them again. Some labs are, depending on your cell type or your PI even, some may be more rigid in how they want, like, no, you have to split your cells every other day, in which case that means that in the lab on the weekends more frequently. So just kind of depends.
So, did you like were you rotating before, and did you like rotate in different kind of labs? And with this particular aspect of work-life balance, did you consider this, that I might have to work on a Sunday or a weekend and these kind of things? Like, do you have stories regarding this?
You kind of know when you sign up for grad school that you're not just going to be a Monday through Friday all the time. I mean, we know that. I mean, I get that. It's just that I can't do it consistently, right? Like the kind of burnout that comes with going in every single weekend for an extended period of time. You need to charge. And those kinds of differences can be between just the culture of different labs. Regardless of the techniques that you're doing. If everyone else is feeling like they really value getting stuff done like for an hour on a Sunday and then having the rest of the time to, separate life, or if people are, are people in the lab pitted against each other to say like the first person who gets this data gets to be the first author on this paper. And unfortunately that is a strategy I experienced that luckily. But I do know of people who have, so.
Yeah. Okay, that's nice. So, how do you usually like manage your times? Like, I mean, since we are discussing, obviously there are times when you go during weekends and you have to work during weekends. So how do you like go about scheduling your things?
Yeah, so I have had to draw very firm boundaries because when I first started, the pandemic had just started basically, and I was already feeling like I had lost time because as soon as I joined the labs shut down and I hadn't gotten to gather any data. And so I was going basically every single day, not for like, I wouldn't work full 8-hour days on Saturdays.
Okay.
I would be in lab like every single day. And I just burnt to a crisp. Like I was so done. I just wasn't motivated anymore. And I realized that I needed to start drawing boundaries around my weekends. And it became more challenging for me everyone's entitled to their own work-life balance. I will never say this enough, like if you want to work on the weekends and that fulfills you and that's what you choose, like I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. Like work-life balance is a point of diversity in the workplace that needs to be respected. Like if you don't on the weekends, that's fine. You can bust your tail Monday through Friday. If you prefer to put in the extra hours or have your hours distributed more equally throughout the week, like that's fine. It's
Yeah.
just for me, I need my 2 weekend days to recharge, and I'm a better scientist on Monday if I do that. However, I am different than my other lab members in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
everyone else in my lab prefers to work on the weekends or get
Mm-hmm.
things during that time, and so it can be difficult to in comparison sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. So, especially like, and good that you brought this point up, like, building your own boundaries. Because a person A can be a person who needs more time for their family. Maybe they have kids and they have like more responsibility for their family versus a person B who does not have those kind of obligations with respect to their family. So the kind of time that they are going to be able to give in into their work is going to be different. And because, but then again, the person B who does not have all these kind of investments to make with respect to their personal life is going to put in more time and effort in, I would say more time, I wouldn't say more effort, because the effort can be equal, more time into their work, and that can actually kind of build a pressure on the co-workers, and like expectations from everybody else increases, and I don't know how that dynamics is actually, it's actually different in different labs. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it's completely, I really think that you need to try to find a lab. If you're going through PhD rotations right now or plan to in the next year, I was told this and I didn't believe it. So I'll tell you that it's true. The PI that you choose needs to be a good fit as a person, and in your work-life balance priorities, the science does not matter as much.
Yeah.
Like, I was so interested and focused on like the kind of cool science project that I could do, and like it is important, right? Like that's what you're going to school for. But ultimately, like when you're looking for a lab, like it's one of the only times in your life where you're in a critical like a critical time where you can choose your boss. You choose
Right.
the kind of work environment. Like you get to go around and see if your program is rotation based. During your rotations, you have choices. You have a choice of what kind of work environment you want to have and what kind of boss you want to have.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, is a larger factor in your professional development and your
Yeah.
happiness during your PhD than anything else. So.
Yes, yes, I agree. It's also like the compatibility, and we've discussed this in a lot of episodes that we have had on the show before, that the compatibility between you and your supervisor matters more than the kind of work or the kind of project that you're doing. Because if there is an understanding and if your frequencies match, then you're going to be able to like contribute your almost your 100% to the kind of work that you're doing. So I completely agree with what you're saying. The science does not really matter. Ultimately, PhD is like, it's a training process. So you are going to be trained with respect to different tools and with respect to different kind of science. But ultimately, it depends on how you match with respect to the work environment that you have.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You spoke about like COVID times. Was that the time when you actually started your PhD?
So I started my PhD in August of 2019.
Okay.
My program is structured so that you take a full year of classes. So from
Mm-hmm.
August to February, we're in class time. And then so in the morning, you're in class, and then the afternoon, you go to your rotation lab. So I did 4
Okay.
rotations, and I officially joined my lab in February of 2020. And then the world fell apart about 3 weeks
Yeah,
after.
in a month.
Yeah,
Okay.
I really did not
All
plan
right. So then,
getting any data. Yeah.
so then, did you have like you said that you were going to the lab during that time? Did you have like shifts for each like individual in the lab or something like that?
Kind of. So the labs were shut down until mid-May of 2020, like completely. I was only reading papers and
Okay.
research articles and working from home, and having like Zoom lab meetings. And then we started being able to have one at the same time. Oops, sorry. Did I pause?
It was fine. I understood what you said.
Yeah. So I started being able to have like 1 or 2 people in lab at the same time. So we'd kind of do like, we just had a Google Calendar where we kind of just signed up and made sure that we were people in lab at the same time. I'm an early riser, so I was just came in on the earlier shift and other people worked later at night. So it worked out okay.
Okay, okay. That's great. So in that case, I think it would have been much better because you came in early. So there was, and of course, like most of the world was inside their homes, we were not allowed to go out. So then in that case, I think the work-life balance would have been like fine, right?
Well, but there was no life to have.
Yeah. Yes.
Literally, it was such an odd time because I couldn't see any of my friends. And like, there's already a certain level of isolation that comes with doing a PhD. I'm lucky enough to be doing my PhD in a city that's about an hour-and-a-half drive from where my family and friends are.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so like I can make plans on the weekends and like see friends from college and like my family members. People that maintain my identity outside of my PhD, I have access to. But I know that that's not the case for a lot of PhD students. People move out of the country or out of state or whatever, like
Yes.
that for their PhD, and that comes with a certain level of isolation on its own. And then you add COVID, the isolation was extreme for the PhD community in the past 2 years.
Yeah. I agree. I completely agree with that. So what are your thoughts on like coping with these kind of issues? Of course, let's hope that this pandemic will be like done and it will never come back, and these kind of situations we will not ever have again. But did you build any coping mechanisms of your own, or do you have any suggestions for people who are away from their home during these kind of times?
Well, for one thing, COVID really made me realize what was important. Like, I was so focused on lab work and things like that and trying to push through and, really grind out as much data as I possibly could. And then the world stopped and suddenly I couldn't see my family and I couldn't see my friends. And I realized that having those things taken away from me, like personally, I'm a huge baseball fan. So I loved going to the baseball games with my dad. And not only could I not watch baseball on TV, I couldn't go to the baseball game and I couldn't be with my dad. And I realized that all of those things were so much more important to me than my, my career is one aspect of my life, but it's certainly not the thing. Coping mechanisms that I figured out. FaceTime is a beautiful thing. I know it's not the same, but if you're far away, make the time. Find a game that you can play together over Skype, or I have a friend who lives in Portland, Oregon, and I call her every Monday and we play cards together over Skype. And it's just fun friend time that I get to have, and I know that it's weekly, and so that's really helpful. I need time on the weekends to spend time with my college friends. But if that's not an option to you, find a hobby. Find something that, go back to something that you haven't touched since grade school or high school. Do art, not because if you're not good at it, who cares? It's to, heal your soul. Have fun with it. I learned how to play guitar during lockdown. So I love to do that, and that really calms me down. And helps me connect with my more artistic side rather than my logical science brain all the time.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I think going back to your roots basically is what you're suggesting, and that is something where we find joy and happiness, and connecting back is something in some way or the other, whatever is possible, is I think something we should try and do.
Yeah, I can't stress enough. Make sure that you maintain all the other aspects of yourself that are outside of your PhD. PhD can be all-consuming. Academia will suck up your entire life if you let it. And so I put a lot of energy into making sure that I don't get completely sucked up, that I maintain who I am outside of it.
So now that the restrictions have kind of gone down, how have you come back to your usual routine, and what kind of things do you do now? I'm sure now that baseball is back, you go and watch baseball with your dad. Yes, but apart from that, what else is usually on your agenda?
Yeah, I'm usually so every Friday night I play softball with my lab mates. So there's a team for our department that I manage, and so we play softball every Friday night. So I love to do that. Um, I still really maintain playing the guitar. When I've had a really stressful day in lab, that's one of the first things I do sometimes is come sit right here and play guitar for a while, and it just kind of helps I have anxiety, and so my brain kind of tends to still fixate on things that were going on in lab, or like, oh my gosh, what do I have to plan for the next day? And my brain is swirling around, and my brain can't swirl as quickly when I'm engaged in music instead.
That's nice. That's nice. So what are your thoughts on like work-life balance basically is something which keeps you sane also. What are your thoughts on like physical as well as mental balance with respect to work-life issues? Because there are a lot of discrepancies which happen when you are actually too much into work and you're too stressed, so it's going to affect your mental health as well as your physical health. So what do you think about that?
Work-life balance and mental health tie hand in hand. I gave a presentation at my institution about that about a year ago. And that work-life balance, well, first of all, it ties into mental health. It can also tie into feminism and like people from underrepresented populations being represented in science, because we all have different ideas of what our families look like.
Mm-hmm.
And we all, that like I said, point of diversity in the workplace. But yeah, I mean, my mental health certainly suffered because I wasn't drawing adequate boundaries with work life. One of the biggest things that actually helped me, one of the first steps that I took was taking my work email off of my phone.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
Um, because I found myself like always wanting to check my work email,
Yes.
and I always have my phone with me, so I could never really fully check out. And
Mm-hmm.
I have my laptop with me enough. I can certainly check my email with a, expected frequency and still be professional, but I don't need to have it in my pocket all the time.
Right.
Um, that was very helpful for me as well.
That's a wonderful suggestion. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
What else? Like, do you think, like, of course, it depends. It's different for different people, obviously. But is it like there are certain things that you should follow, or if you follow, that will help with your mental balance or your physical balance as well?
Yeah. Sometimes I give myself worry time. So if you find yourself excessively worrying or like thinking about things in lab, like I get insomnia sometimes because I'm thinking about what I need to do in lab. It's like, okay, I need to remind myself that's valid, but we're going to pick a time to worry about that, where I write down all of the things that I'm concerned about and try to organize them. But
Mm-hmm.
I need to not do that then at 2 a.m. laying in bed wide awake. That is not the time for that. I was like, I can do this later. I don't need to tell my brain that I don't need to worry about this stuff. Now is just not the time for it. Now is not the space for it. And so I really try to condition myself to not engage in too much list making or like to
Mm-hmm.
making when I'm at home. Like I'm only making lists about lab tasks when I'm in lab, because otherwise I start to think about all the things I have to do for the rest of the week when I'm at home, and I'm not present with my partner. I'm not present with myself or the parts of my life that I really want to value at that point in time.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's nice. So you're saying that you basically have trained yourself to not think about work when you are at home. So separate like work as well as like home things very clearly and have like a good boundary between both of these.
And
Um,
it's not a perfect science. I mean, of course, like, do I check my email at home? Yeah, on my laptop. Yes, I do. Or, like if I want to work from home and I don't want to be in the lab space and I want to just like do some data analysis on my computer, great. But I need to make sure that I'm not doing that in the same space that I relax. So
okay.
I need to like be at my desk instead of sitting on the couch or that kind of thing.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Um, So you were just talking about like how you made a presentation basically on work-life balance, and then connected feminism with work-life balance, connected diversity with work-life balance. Would you like to elaborate a bit on that?
Sure. I mean, work-life balance has a lot to do with what people would say perhaps toxic academia, where we have this like inherent expectation in the culture of academia that like it might not have been directly said at any point, but it's this implied idea that you're not a good scientist if you don't dedicate your whole entire life to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that does not give that doesn't give any room for any neurodivergence. It doesn't give any room for people with families or people who want to start a family. People just have different, you can love science, but you can also like want to have a life outside of it. And I feel like it has a lot to do with the leaky pipeline. Have you heard that term before? Yeah. With women in research. So
yeah, so you're talking about where there are a lot of women, like the ratio between men and women is almost equal towards like a BS, a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, and then later on it kind of becomes skewed because a lot of women drop out. That's what you mean by the leaky pipeline, right?
exactly, yes.
Yeah.
Where you see like about an equal number of bachelor's degrees, but then as soon as you get to be higher level master's, PhD, or even people in like higher position places in research, there's even less and less women as you move up the ladder. And I really firmly believe that a lot of this can be due to the lack of work-life balance value that comes with working in academia. Because if you were able to respect that as a point of diversity in the workplace, then like women don't feel like if they want to start a family that it's not compatible with being able to stay in that career, and they have to make a choice. So, and it's not a choice that you should have to make. You should be able to have both.
Yes. Yes. Also, I think pregnancy breaks and all these kind of things are something which are kind of contributing to these issues, and there has to be like probably has to be a better way of dealing with these things, which maybe now some of the people have started coming up with, but it still needs to be resolved in a better way, I guess.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. What do you think about, so, and what about diversity? So you also think that differentially represented groups are also affected by this aspect of work-life balance?
I mean, it can be. Everyone's situation is different. And in terms of like, what about your income? Those kinds of things. Like some people can live off of their PhD stipend. Some people need assistance. Yes. People need a second job. Some programs don't allow you to have a second job, which then prohibits you from being able to get the education that you need in the first place.
Yeah.
There's a lot of barriers with first generation students where they feel like they're flailing around and don't have any guidance in the system. They don't have any mentors to look up to. And particularly if the mentors that you have don't have a great work-life balance at the time, then that's what you see as your example. And then maybe you might be turned away from it yourself.
Yeah. So. Yeah, like we live by example, right? Like we look up to our seniors, and that's what we try and follow. Yeah, that makes sense, of course.
Yeah.
So there is this aspect about, I think we have like kind of superficially touched upon that. There's this aspect of about like sometimes you have to put your professional agendas over your personal agendas, and the other way around. So how do you deal with these conflicts?
Yeah, so it's challenging, and I was actually having a conversation with my boss about this last week. I'm like, it's not about, I'm drawing boundaries about not coming in on the weekends, not because I'm saying I refuse to ever come in on a Saturday or a Sunday. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that I don't want to end up coming in every single weekend for the next 2 years. Like, right, like I just can't do it consistently. Like if I had a deadline, like I have my thesis proposal coming up at the end of July, like I intend and I plan on working on the weekends in the near future, because I'm going to have a pending deadline where I need to get a proposal written. I need to practice my presentation. I need to read extra literature, and like I'm prepared for that, and I intend to do that. And so I'm going to have to sacrifice some time with my partner, some time with my friends and family, and keep my weekends fairly open to leave time for studying and for extra experiments being run. And I expect that to happen. But there are other times where maybe I have a lull in my experiments, or I don't even have to have a lull, or I have a family reunion, or something like that's like very important in my personal life. It's my anniversary with my partner that I want to prioritize that at that time. And I don't think that any of us should ever really feel bad or shamed for sometimes putting our personal lives ahead of our professional lives, and vice versa. If you need to put your professional life ahead of your personal for whatever reason, that it's fine. It's just like it's about that balance. It ebbs and flows. It's consistently choosing one over the other that balance kind of gets thrown off.
So do you like pre-plan certain things? Like suppose there's a wedding coming and like a few months before that, right? So do you like pre-plan your work around that, so that there are certain experiments which are long ongoing experiments? So do you make sure that there is no conflict between these personal and professional events?
Yeah, so I try to plan ahead as much as possible. Luckily, I know that a lot of people who work with animals, their studies are like many weeks, sometimes many months long, and have to think about that far in advance. The majority of my protocols are about 3 to 4 days long. So I can plan them accordingly and be like, I can talk to my lab mate and say, hey, would you mind splitting my cells? I have to be gone for a long weekend. And we're all pretty flexible with that. So, but people who have longer term things, I can't really speak to that. But I have a little bit more flexibility in that I can plan like a week in advance and be okay.
That's great. All right. Yeah. So, do you have any stories with respect to of your own, like anecdotes where you actually had to have like a work-life balance situation, like 3 years now that you have been in doing your PhD? Anything interesting that you would like to share?
This was not specifically me, but it was someone in a neighboring lab in a very parallel situation to mine. So I'll share that without names. This person had really gotten their experiments to work really well, and they were on track to publish really soon. And they asked their PI for a long weekend off because their birthday was coming up, and they wanted to go camping with their family members.
Okay.
And their boss's reaction was, why would you want to take time off right now when your experiments just started working?
Ouch.
Yes. So then the response was, because my birthday doesn't change. And my life isn't just these experiments. And I thought, like, they literally said that straight to their boss. And I was like, wow, that is gutsy.
That's nice.
It's true, but it's completely true. And that's where we really need to focus on trying to find a boss where you have similar work-life balance priorities, because ultimately, like, you can work really hard to draw the boundaries, but if you have dissimilar priorities with that, then you're always going to butt heads to some extent, even if you respect.
Yes, so that's going to be a problem. I agree. Yeah. Okay. Final question. Do you have like any advice to our viewers about, of course, again and again, we've like come across this point that it's different for different people. It's different for different kind of work. But what would be like your broader advice to our viewers with respect to maintaining a sane work-life balance?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not easy. I'm still working at it. But really maintain your friendships outside of your lab if you can. I know that if you're far away from where your childhood or college friends are, that it's challenging, but maintaining a work-life balance, for me, being with friends that are outside of science is critical. Someone who reminds me who I am and loves me for who I am before all of the PhD madness started and before it consumed my life, can really help you tie back to the core of who you are. And that is really what has been the main thing for me.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's a nice answer. It's very precise, and I think it's going to help a lot of people. All right. Thank you so much, Chandler, for joining us today. I think it was a very nice and crisp episode that we have had, and I hope it has been very helpful to our viewers. I'm certainly going to go and delete my work email from my phone.
It's very freeing, I will tell you.
Yeah, so thanks for that tip. And thank you so much. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks.
I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and we'll be back with another interesting topic in the next couple of weeks. Till then, stay tuned. Bye.